Llama 3 models were good. Qwen 2.5 models have been amazing. And Alibaba's new QWQ, also known as Quinn with questions, or as I like to call it, QW, is proving to be quite incredible because it gives you reasoning capabilities on your device. This is the first local reasoning model that really caught my attention, but it's not for the reason you think. And let's be real here, this model, although impressive, has flaws. It can consume quite a ton of time due to its excessive looping. It randomly will spit out Chinese, and its greatest advantage, the chain of thought loop, also makes it effectively useless since the outputs contain its internal thoughts. In this video, I want to share a couple ideas with you surrounding prompt chaining. We're going to look at a two-model prompt chain pattern where you use a reasoner to generate the source of the output, and then you use a high-quality base model to extract the outputs. By doing this, we make QW instantly useful. I've been really impressed with this model. It is hard to use, so let's dig in. Let's figure out how we can get value from powerful local reasoning models. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when the next model drops, but today. So for our generative AI stack, we're going to be using QWQ, a Qwen 2.5 model, O1 Mini, 4o, Ollama, and LLM libraries to run our prompt. So here's the setup commands. Everything we're going to look at in the video is going to be linked in the description for you in a gist. Let's just go ahead and do some quick recap. So we can run models like this. I can copy this command and just run a Quinn model right out of Ollama. So we're all familiar with this. Ollama is super powerful. We're just passing in this simple ping command. We can also run this with the brand new QW model, and it's going to give us something similar. There's not a lot for it to think about here, so thankfully we don't get a super long loop. We just get the response Pong. And of course, we can run the LLM library and we'll get a simple Pong response from the O1 Mini model as well. Running the QWQ model is really fantastic. It's really powerful. I think it's a fantastic model for planning, designing, building architecture, ideation, and content generation. The big problem with this model, it's going to take quite a bit of time, and the output of the model is going to be entangled with the thoughts. So let me show a concrete example of what I mean by that exactly. Here we'll say code, Python, CSV to DB. We'll pass in a CSV path as the parameter, and then we'll expect back a string. Let's see what Quinn with questions does, okay? So first off, you can see one of the issues with the model is that sometimes it just spits out Chinese. So I'm gonna break it here right away and prefix it with English. And let's see if this helps here, right? So I'm gonna fire it off once again. There we go. So now we're getting the response back in English. So it's walking through exactly how it would create this function. So in this very kind of condensed prompt, you see we're getting a lot of information here, right? It's really breaking things down. And if we were to open up another terminal window here and fire off, let's go ahead and fire off this same prompt with a O1 Mini call and just pass this in here, right? If we were to run that same thing, we know that O1 Mini hides its thought process. So O1 Mini is not going to show us the details. It's just going to print out exactly what we are looking for. So if we scroll up, we can see the final output here from the O1 Mini model. Of course, it's super fast. It's running on OpenAI's hyperfast servers, while QWQ or QW is running right on my MacBook M2 Pro. You can see here, it's still going, it's still spinning. This is taking a crap ton of time, and I'm just going to cut it off there, right? It takes a ton of time to run this model. So as the Quinn team mentioned, this model can get caught in recursive loops. Maybe we were in one there. It's hard to be sure. So already when we compare this to O1 Mini, it's not really a fair comparison. QW is not really that effective. You can't really use this model out of the box. So how do we resolve this issue of QWQ outputting a ton of thought? What we really want to do is extract its final response. So what we can do is use a prompt chain, and let's go ahead and just pull out an example here, right? This is a simple script that we've created. You can run using bun or Python's UV. And if we open our file explorer, we can see two files, chain.py and chain.ts. Let's look at the TypeScript version. We can see we have read and replace, and we have prompt chain. So let's open up prompt simple. And you can see we have a really, really simple XML prompt here. And we can run this with this command here. Let's bring this to a new file. So we're going to run bun run chain. We're going to pass in the original input. So this is going to be the first value of this. We want to use the prompt simple.txt file, and then we're going to use the Ollama Qwen 2.5 coder model. We can just go ahead and fire this off. It'll make tons of sense once I run this. You can see we have an output, and you can see what's happening here, right? Our input is getting replaced with our start value. Okay. Start value with bun is the first input, and it's replacing this template, right? In our previous video, we talked about the 4 levels of the prompt from level 1 to level 4. Definitely check that out to get a good understanding of how you can write high quality prompts. Here we have a super simple version of a prompt where we have a purpose and a dynamic variable. So we can do something interesting with this simple script. If we hop back to chain.ts or chain.py, you'll notice something interesting here. We're just looping through a list of prompts, and we're also looping through a list of models. And then in this prompt chain function, if we see a model that's prefixed with Ollama, we go ahead and run the Ollama command. If it's prefixed with LLM, we run the CLI LLM command. And this allows us to take the output from a prompt and use it as the input to another prompt. We've done a couple videos on prompt chaining in the past. This is a super powerful pattern that doesn't get talked about a lot. You can use this to compensate and strengthen model abilities by taking one prompt and using the output of a prompt as the input to another prompt. So you can check out this code. Link, of course, is going to be in the description if you want to understand how prompt chaining works at a deeper level. But basically we have this simple script here, both a TypeScript and a Python version that allows you to chain together outputs. So we can do something interesting like this, right? If I hop back to the README, and if I go to prompt chain with 2 prompts, I can just copy this. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. And you'll see something really interesting here, right? We have the start value. We have our list of prompts. So what we're doing here is we're running simple prompt with start value. And then we're taking the output from this first prompt, and then we're passing it in to the second prompt, okay? And for both prompts, we're gonna run the exact same model of these items. So if we go ahead, kick this off, you'll see something interesting. Start value is getting passed in the first prompt content. And this prompt is basically just suffixing Pong to the response. And so you can see the result here, start value Pong. Then we run it again. So we pass start value Pong as the input to prompt 2. And then of course the output is start value Pong, right? Because we run the prompt chain twice. And the cool part about this, of course, is that you can scale this to whatever number of prompts you like, right? So you can run this here again with 3 prompts, and you can see, the output getting treated as the input 3 times. And then, you can basically do this as many times as you want and as many times is as useful to you, right? So if we copy this, paste it in here, we have a prompt chain of length 10 that's going to take the previous prompt's output and use it as the input to the next prompt. So I hope you can see where this is going, right? If we want to use QW or Quinn with questions in an interesting way and really get value out of it right now, we can create prompt chains. So you can see here, I've been experimenting with several prompt chains. You can take prompt chains and use one on the QWQ model to, run your original prompt. And then you can use an extraction model. This can be GPT-4. It can be another local model like Quinn 2.5. It can be whatever you want it to be. Then you can use another model to extract the output. Let's look at a real example of that. And if this is making sense, if you're understanding how prompt training can be useful, drop the like, drop the sub. This is our bread and butter. Prompt engineering is super, super core to the channel. And it's super important in the age of generative AI. The prompt is everything. If you can understand and use and manipulate prompts, you are going to win over the next year and beyond. We can see here, let me just go ahead and pull this into a file so we can take a look at this. We have a base prompt input value that's going to go into our prompt title generation reasoner. If we open up that prompt, we can see what that looks like right here. Create eye-catching, high SEO, click-worthy titles. So this is good for just content generation for blogs, YouTube videos, any type of content that you might be creating. We have a prompt here with a dynamic variable, instructions, and a purpose. And let's go ahead and fire this off. This will take a little bit of time to run since we're running this all locally. What's going to happen here is we'll see in the output, but basically we're going to have QWQ walk through creating these titles, and then we're going to have a Ollama Qwen 2.5 model parse out the response. And we can speed this up by running an OpenAI series prompt chain. So let's use an O1 reasoning model and then GPT-4o as the base model, running the exact same thing, right? So we can copy this, go to a file, and before we run this, let's go ahead and just take a look so we understand what is happening here. So we have the same thing, right? Run chain.ts. The first parameter is the title that we want to create other titles based on. And then we have our first prompt, which is going to be a reasoner prompt. And then we have our second prompt, right? And our second prompt is our extraction prompt. That looks like this. Okay. So same kind of deal, extract the titles from the final output of user input. So we're referencing this dynamic variable here. We have some instructions, and then we have example output telling us exactly how we want these titles formatted. Fantastic. We have this second prompt, and you can see here we're running LLM instead of Ollama because we're using cloud models here. And we're going to run an O1 reasoning model and then GPT-4o mini. This is some pretty light work. We don't need a more powerful model than this. Let's go ahead and in our second terminal window, fire this off. And we'll see this get created pretty quickly here since it's on OpenAI's GPU tech. Fantastic. And then we can just go ahead and open this up and take a look, right? So it's in that same format. We have our first prompt. You can see our prompt content here. So this is, that full value. It's getting populated here. If we open up this prompt, you can see exactly what that looked like and exactly how it was replaced thanks to this input dynamic variable. And then we have the result from O1 mini, right? So we have this result. It's giving us 10 new titles. Feel free to choose the best one. And then we run our second prompt, right? We directly take this output. And if we scroll down here, you can see in our user input, this is our input to our next prompt, okay? And then if we scroll down, you can see O1 mini giving us a nice clean JSON structure here. All we have to do is parse it out of the markdown block. Really cool stuff here. Let's see if QWQ has finished. There it is. Let's go ahead and open it up. And we can see the same thing from QWQ. Of course, we're going to see a much longer chain of thought, right? We're going to see its internal monologue. I really like the fact that you can see its entire thought process, right? If we search characters, you can see it keeping the character count between 40 and 85, right? It explicitly mentions one of our instructions. We do love to see that. I'm sure it's going to mention at some point, the number of titles that we want to create. This is great. It's giving us a breakdown of the characters against its new titles, right? Making sure they're within the character limit, make sure they're unique and not repetitive. That's something we explicitly mentioned in one of our instructions. So it's really great to see QW, explicitly mentioning that in its thought process. This is really what you want to see from your reasoning models. You want to see them reflecting on your prompt inputs. And then we have the final titles list here, right? And now let's see if Qwen 2.5 Coder was able to take the user output and actually return JSON. So you can see here we have the input for Qwen 2.5 Coder being the output of our previous model here. So if we scroll down to final titles, if we just search this, we can see we're now inside the user input on the Qwen 2.5 model. And if we scroll down to the output, let's see how it's done. Nice, fantastic. So Qwen 2.5 was able to nail this, and it's all thanks to this prompt chaining pattern where we have a powerful reasoning model generating the request, thinking through your prompt, and then we have an extractor model. So this is a traditional base model, right? This is going to be your average GPT-4o, Gemini, your flashes, your minis, your Quinns, your base language model. They can do the extraction work of pulling out the final result from your reasoning model. So, if we just search here, you can see supercharge your NLP locally. And if we scroll up here, you can see that was in the final titles and that worked really well. Likely use inspiration from the example outputs. And you can see where this is going, right? This is an important pattern that I want to share with you specifically for these reasoning models where we can see the chain of thought. We can see the internal monologue of models like QWQ, Quinn with questions. It's possible that in the future, we'll see the internal monologue from the new O1 model or other reasoning models that are going to be coming out in the future. This pattern is going to be ultra useful for cleaning out and parsing out the outputs from these powerful reasoning models, right? Because otherwise you're limited to using QWQ and other reasoning models just inside of a chat window where you have to manually parse out the result every single time, right? I wanted to share this idea with you. I wanted to bring prompt chaining back up on the channel. This is something I use internally all the time when I'm building out my own AI agents, personal AI assistants. You can kind of see it littered across some of the code bases I share on the channel. Prompt chaining is ultra important, and it's not discussed enough. So I wanted to share that with you here on the channel. Feel free to check out our previous prompt engineering video where we walk through the 4 levels of prompts that allow you to write really powerful, really accurate prompts. Everything you saw here is going to be in the description in a gist for you. Let me know what you think in the comments. How do you feel about QWQ? Are you finding it useful for your own work? If so, how are you using this model? I have the 2025 predictions video coming up for the channel. One of my big predictions, to kind of give a little bit away, we're going to see local models become truly viable, truly useful in a more mainstream way. And QWQ, QW, Quinn with questions is absolutely paving the way here. I gotta say, I am shocked with this model. It is finicky, it's stingy, it's the preview version. There are a lot of problems with this model, as we've discussed. There's language mixing, it's slow, you need a prompt chain to extract the actual final result. But we're going down a great path here. AI is becoming democratized. That's really important. We don't want any one of these large AI companies to own all of this technology. I found QW to be a bit more interesting than the model context provider from Anthropic. That's a super important release. We're going to cover that on the channel as well. I want to see that get developed a little more, and I'm still working through how to best use that technology. If you enjoyed this video, you know what to do. Drop the like, drop the sub, and I'll see you in the next one.